My name is Terry Hofford, and this is a series of flaws. As part of my mission to normalize normal bodies in the photography industry, I'm going to be focusing on how to help our clients heal their relationships with their bodies by giving them an amazing experience and beautiful images that will help them correlate that this body helped them do something amazing. Most photographers are taught to see their subjects as a series of flaws to be avoided, but I think we can do better. And now back to me, 1, 2, 3. Beautiful! You did it! Yay! Good job! Thanks, lady. Be about, like, where you say, like, okay, but you've used skin editing before, so why is this, like, what changed or what's different?
Well, what changed?
Are we recording right now? Oh, okay. I don't even know.
What changed for you? Like, what made you want to do this?
I think just knowing that I have a responsibility to help people document who they are as opposed to creating someone they maybe aren't. As it is, we've already compared ourselves to enough people online and in magazines. The last thing I wanted to do was have my clients comparing themselves to a false narrative of themselves. So focusing on showing them that they can have an amazing experience and feel an emotion, and all the body bits that they think are wrong with them, we're there to help them experience that. Like, we never think about that the tummy that we so despise is the thing that our kids like love to hang on to, or the cellulite on our thighs is the thing that is there when we're running, or like all these body bits that we're taught are flaws are not actually flaws. They just are.
We attribute negative meaning to them.
Yeah, and it's not fair.
So how do you think that in the past, like, your own biases, maybe in editing and in like doing photography as a whole, have affected the way that, like, the work you produced and what you've
Well, I
done?
think a big part is, like, I'm a self-taught photographer, so a lot of the information I was receiving to hone and learn my craft was from other photographers that also learned from other photographers, and the information we've been fed has always been the same, particularly when it comes to shooting women, is that you need to make them smaller, you need to make them submissive, you need to make sure they definitely don't have double chins, hide their stomach as much as possible. If you, like, don't even think about showing a client her actual age in a photograph, whatever that even means, like, all of these things we're taught to make women basically smaller and perfect, when in fact we're just human. We're not. Nobody's perfect.
Have you experienced critical kind of judgment, I guess, in your own experience, like being photographed by other people?
Yeah, there have definitely been times where I've been photographed, but to be honest, I went to those photographers to see what it would be like to be heavily photoshopped, or to be, and like what my inner reaction would be, despite being as far along as I am on my body image journey, if that makes sense. But to be honest, the one person I did go to that, like, the photos were great and exactly true to their style of work, I have not even posted one of them, because it is such a false version of myself, which is, I knew going into it would be, but I couldn't do it. In fact, now, like, even when I take photos of myself, I make sure, like, none of them are retouched, because I see myself without makeup and I see myself in the mirror all the time. So it helps me correlate that both are the same person and both are worthy of documentation.
What do you think happens when you are exposed to these, like, false narratives?
Well, I think it's similar to what they're seeing now with, like, filters on social media and things like that, where people get used to, it basically builds a representation of what we believe to be true in our minds. And then when we see the reality, there's this big disconnect between what is real and what is a false reality that we've told ourselves there is. And that can be really alarming for people. And because it's stuff that we've been programmed to think is bad and wrong, then we think that what is totally natural is the wrong thing, and this false version is the better thing, when in fact that is not the case.
How has your life changed, or your mindset changed, since kind of taking on this new perspective?
I think, like I said, for me, as somebody that was retouching clients all the time, as a service-based boudoir business, that means like I understand that clients have a certain expectation of how much Photoshop there will be done, is that I realized that in Photoshopping out their perceived flaws, I also started to Photoshop out my own when I'd see photos of myself. And actually I ended up doing a project called Textures because I needed to see that no, there is texture in people's skin and it's okay that we see it. And interestingly enough, when we photograph men, we see texture all the time. In fact, we are taught to enhance the texture of men's skin to make them look grittier and rough. And then women get glossed right over like, oh no, you definitely can't have a pore. That would be terrible.
Why do you think people are so afraid of their flaws?
Well, I think it all comes down to shame, for sure, not wanting to, like we all want to feel like we belong and we fit in. And of course, beauty standards are one of the main ways that we're taught that you can fit in, especially as women. So I think that is a huge part of it. So when we see these things that somebody else has told us or businesses are very loudly telling us are problems or flaws, it's very hard not to take that seriously and not to believe it when that's the messaging you keep receiving.
So how do you think people can come to accept things that they perceive as flaws?
I think doing things like this, having photo shoots done, looking at photos where they may be unflattering, seeing yourself with skin texture, with double chins, with belly folds, with back rolls, with cellulite, with all of these things that we're taught are bad, and understanding that they're not bad, they just are. Like somebody taught us that they were bad. Like one of my favorite things to do is get people to go down the rabbit hole when you ask them about their tum. Like, why don't you like your tummy? Well, it's soft and squishy. And what is it about being soft and squishy you don't like? And nobody has an answer for me because they don't actually know why they believe that. Because it's a silly thing when you think about it that you would feel that way, right? There's no reason. Aside somebody told you that and you have just decided to believe it. So I think it's like doing these things that scare the crap out of you with the body that you have right now to kind of correlate the idea that this body doesn't hold you back. Those body bits that people told you should hold you back do not hold you back unless you let them.
You actually choose.
Yeah, you decide, not your body bits.